Welcome, everybody. I'm really pleased to have everybody here. I think I might be echoing on my own phone here, so we won't do that. But we are glad to have that virtual option. It's kind of nice on a day like today. There's also coffee, hi Jamie, outside, and fruit and all kinds of good breakfast goodies to keep you warm if you'd like that as well. We're really pleased to welcome you to the Douglas County Homeless Initiative discussion this morning, and we're pleased to welcome Jack Briggs, the president and CEO for the Springs Rescue Mission. It's Southern Colorado's largest homeless shelter and addiction recovery program. Prior to the rescue mission, Jack was vice president for global resiliency and security at New York University. He was responsible for organizing, integrating, and executing the university's emergency management and continuity programs and security for NYU's 15 campuses in 15 countries. Oh, I'm sorry, in 11 countries. Still a lot of countries. While at NYU, Jack earned his doctorate in education, leadership, and innovation as well. And before NYU, Jack served in the United States Air Force for over 30 years in a variety of senior leadership roles, retiring as a major general. We're incredibly thankful for him being with us here today, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to share with us. Thanks for being here, Jack.
Thank you for bringing the weather and the last mile of all of the traffic that was there to get to the building. And for those of you that are online, thank you for tuning in as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Jack Briggs, just to give you a little bit of background about why I'm in this particular position. When I was in the Air Force, my last assignment was in Colorado Springs, and I got connected to Springs Rescue Mission, and I was on the board of directors there for a couple of years. The reason I'm involved in homelessness and addiction, I had a family member who was addicted and housing insecure in and out of the streets in Denver for several years. My sister, she ended up actually passing away on the streets because she wasn't eating. She was an addict. She wasn't eating, she got sick, and she passed away from that. So it's been something in my family and something that I've always been working with. And that's where, when I was on the board, the mission asked me when I was in New York if I might come back and be the CEO when the then CEO wanted to retire. To come back to Colorado, of course, it was a great opportunity. So, and this is a great opportunity as well to talk with you. So, are we going to show the slides, or is that how that works? Okay. So that was my introduction. Next, and then I think I get to do this. Yes. Next. There you go. So right off the bat, I want to explain what Springs Rescue Mission is. We're a Christ-centered, low-barrier gospel rescue mission, and I'm going to break all that down very quickly. So Christ-centered, we're a religious organization, and we meet people at their need based on our conviction that that's what Christ asks us to do. Low barrier, we have no criteria for someone coming to the rescue mission other than if they will behave. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But low barrier is actually a term in homeless definitions. And what that means is you can be an active user of drugs. You can be a convicted felon. You can be high. You can be drunk. And you can come to the rescue mission. We don't have a litmus test for faith. We don't ask people, hey, what are your 5 favorite 10 commandments? And you only gave us 4. Okay, you can try again tomorrow. We don't do that. Our questions are more like, when was the last time you had something to eat? Or for our female clients in particular, when was the last time you went to sleep and you were convinced, you knew that you weren't going to get assaulted while you were asleep? Those are the kind of questions that we ask. In terms of behavior, we have folks that have all kinds of backgrounds. As long as they are polite with each other, they don't bring drugs or alcohol or paraphernalia into the shelter, they don't bring their weapons into the shelter, and they don't fight or argue or be disruptive inside the shelter, they can stay. And so we meet people right at that need. right there. And then we are a gospel rescue mission. There's about 300-ish gospel rescue missions in the United States, and they are typically, in most places, the largest, if not the only option outside of the emergency room for most folks that are out on the street. And you'll see rescue missions across the country. We have the goal to meet people right at their need. But it's much more than that. And I've just got some numbers here. So we have bed space for 450 people. That's going to be important when we get to the end of the briefing. We'll serve anywhere from 600 to 700 meals every day. We have over 100 people who will be getting some sort of addiction recovery activity on any given day. And we have over 130 people every day who will be participating in some sort of vocation training, work training, if you will. Okay. We focus on 3 pillars. Our 3 pillars are health, work, and housing. Those are and it's a little bit in that order. You need to address your health issues before you can start to work your vocational training issues, which will then allow you to get employment so that you can pay for a place to live. You know, that's the big stretch, if you will, of the spectrum of where we're after. But all 3 of those things work together, okay? Now, before I go any further, I want to introduce you to Thomas. So if someone could just click on that.
Hi, I'm Thomas, and I am no longer homeless. Someone that came over to the house, and they had some coke, and they smoked it up, and I made the mistake of trying it. So then I started selling it. I learned how to cook the stuff, and once that happened, then it was just like free. Giving up cocaine, alcohol was kind of a substitute, and that's when my drinking really got heavy. 2 years living out in the camps. It's pretty tough out there. You know, the first time I gave the mission a chance was December 11th, 2019. They closed the quarry camps. So when they closed that down, I kind of went to the entry shelter. That's when they opened that. And a guy from the Cocaine Anonymous meetings came marching through, you know, he's like, CA meeting? I'm like, what's CA? Oh, Cocaine Anonymous, I never heard of it. You know, that was the first time I went 18 days without a drink, and then I slipped, and then after that I went 14 months. And, you know, that went pretty good. You know, I was working, well, basically I relapsed, and I was back living out in the camps again. After a couple months of that, I don't know, something just made me come back to the mission and told them that I got to, you know, try it again. I got on the work engagement, and it ended up being a good thing, you know. I actually enjoyed it. And then finally I did the IOP, Intensive Outpatient Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation. Now I work for the city of Colorado Springs, you know. I just want to be of service to other people, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's what makes me feel good. But I know God's on my side, and I know He's got my back. All I can do is wake up in the morning, thank you, Lord, for another day of life, and pray for a little guidance. You know, booze and drugs and alcohol don't dictate how I live and where I live. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago.
So a couple things when we switch the slides back. I don't know if you caught it, but I'll reinforce it. He was out in the camps. The camps are hard. I'm just going to tell you. A lot of things that you don't want to have happen out there. When the camps were closed, he had to go somewhere. He decided to come to the rescue mission. The ebb and flow of how people recover is difficult. He ended up back out in the camps, but now he knew the rescue mission was there and what it offered. That's there's a path there, if you can see that. Next, okay, I think I got it. Yes. Can we go to the next slide somehow? There you go. Okay, perfect. So this is the 14-acre campus. We started in 1996 with some folks that were a couple that just wanted to serve sandwiches to people that were living under an overpass. This is in the southern part of Colorado Springs. If you drive through southern Colorado Springs, there's all of the car dealerships on the side. We're on the opposite side of I-25, right there. Over the past about 6 years, we've done an $18 million expansion of the campus to enclose it, to transition ourselves from being a homeless shelter to being a resource campus where we provide health, work, and housing resources. You'll see a variety of buildings there. I would encourage anybody that wants to come visit. We do tours all the time. We've been fortunate enough to give some of the commissioners a tour and some of the other folks, as you can see. This courtyard, whoops, let's go back one. There you go. A couple of pictures here. Now, this is the courtyard, and it's open space for folks during the day. Now, if it's cold, we have enclosed spaces where people can go and they can sit in a day center, if you will. But for most of the day, we have lots of folks that are out in this courtyard. We have a dining facility that's separate, and it produces anywhere from 600 to 1,000 meals a day. We also have a catering business, and the catering business is run by graduates of our program who then use training of our current clients to give them skills. So it's vocational training. And it's a very good catering business. We cater all kinds of different things, 1,000 people weddings down to little bitty businesses. So something that has to do with social enterprises, as an example, is a path for people in vocational training. I want to point out right here, one of the limitations in a lot of cases is people and their dogs and pets, and what do you do with them? So we take pets. I like to kid that we're the only pet shelter in town that takes owners, okay? Why is that important? Because if the only thing that's loved you for the last few years out on the street is your animal, you would rather stay out there and get frostbite than come in. And so addressing what you're gonna do with pets is something to think about, yeah? We have a dentist that comes from Denver every Monday, teeth and feet. If you want to get people interested in coming to your whatever facility it is, addressing teeth and feet is an incentive. Just put it there. And I'm going to talk about these red lockers here a little bit later, but I just want to plant it in your mind, red lockers. Okay. I could really talk at length about all the great programs that we have, but that's not this group, because this group is trying to solve a problem, right? You're trying to solve an issue, and it feels maybe a little bit out of control. And what I'd like to encourage you is it doesn't have to feel that way, because you can take steps that will be important for the community and for the clients that you serve. And what we use at the rescue mission is we use a logic model. So the first thing we look at is our inputs. What inputs do we get? Typically it's resources, people, time, money, equipment, space, those sorts of things. The second thing is programs. With the inputs that you have, what programs do you want to do? Now we break ours down into health, work, and housing. Those programs will create outputs. And this is what everybody that does programs loves to talk about. I've already talked about it here. 450 beds, 600 meals. Those are all interesting, but they're not the thing you should be looking for. They lead to this, outcomes. So outcomes at the rescue mission. Before we were integrated and we were basically a homeless shelter, we would help about 20 people a year move from homelessness and addiction back into community, about 20 people a year. Now we do about 20 people a month. Okay? And I have the data. We have, I can't show it to everybody, but I have a app, because everything's an app. And I have the up to the second, how many people stayed with us, and by month, how many people have gotten jobs and how many people have gotten housing. About 30 people a month get jobs, about 20 people a month get housing, just as a sort of a ballpark number, okay? And that's because we have integrated strategy to do this. As you're thinking about what you want to do, I would encourage you to think about the outcomes you want to achieve and then work backwards from there. That will be a way to sort of frame this and to stop the chaos of, this is a big problem, what are we going to do? Okay, what do we focus on? We focus on dignity, worth, self-reliance, and satisfaction. So dignity. Everybody has dignity. Everybody. Sometimes when you're homeless or addicted, that spark of dignity is very dim. It is incredibly dim. We at the rescue mission are just trying to keep it alive initially. But we believe people have worth. That's really where it's at. Now, I told the city council of Colorado Springs this exact same thing, so I'll tell you, and you can't talk me out of it. You just cannot talk me out of it. You have the worth that the creator of the universe died for you. I believe that, and you can't talk me out of it, okay? What does that mean for us? We're gonna work real hard at trying to improve the situation that you're in. Now, we have to meet you at your need, and you may be starving. And the first thing we want to do is keep you alive, but we don't want you to stay there because you have worth. Now, what does worth mean? Most people that don't deal with folks on the street very much, or with folks that have been incarcerated, or folks that are drug dealers or in trafficking, human trafficking, they don't realize this. Everything that happens on the street, in jail, different places like that, is transactional. If I do this, you'll do that. If you do that, I'll do this. So when someone just hands something to somebody on the street, they will take it. They'll take it because it's a commodity that they can hopefully trade someplace else. But because you haven't asked for anything in return, essentially what you have reinforced is the fact that you have no worth to me. You have nothing of worth. So you got to start small. So when you come to the rescue mission, the first transaction that we have with you is this. If you want to come in, what's your name? You have something that I want. I want to know your name. It's small, I'm telling you, but somebody has to make that decision. If I give you my name, I get to come in. Yep, that's the start. And we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of worth in a minute. Self-reliance. We are trying to get people to be self-reliant, not self-sufficient. Self-sufficient is you take care of everything yourself, and nobody is self-sufficient. Nobody has grown their own food and made their own clothes and mined their own metal to make their own car. Nobody does that. You're self-reliant. You can trust yourself enough to participate in society. You're self-reliant enough that you can make your own medical appointment, attend it, get your prescription, and take your medicine. That's self-reliant, and that's what we're working towards. The last thing is this satisfaction business, right? People who are on the street, addicted, medical or mental issues, typically work off of gratification, instant gratification. Make the noises stop, make the addiction withdrawal stop. I'll do what it takes right now to do that. What we're hoping to achieve, and you can hear it in Thomas's voice, is satisfaction in themselves and the lives they're leading. And that means they'll make decisions now for a better future. The transition is from gratification to satisfaction. That gratification to satisfaction. Gratification is instinct. I'm operating off of instinct at this point, basically, staying alive. Satisfaction is I'm thinking through the problem. How am I going to get to the next thing that I want to do that's going to make it better for me? Movement. Okay. As you're looking at your logic model, I would encourage you to really be honest with each other about what you're trying to incentivize. Remember, I talked about just handing something to somebody. Okay. Well, if you just incentivize someone to stay where they're at, they will do that. That's in everybody's life, whether you're an addict or a homeless person or not. You'll get more of what you incentivize. So the idea is, what do you as leadership want to incentivize? Compassion. Sometimes compassion can get in the way of success. I call it toxic empathy. Because people, they've got the equation skewed, and they're not looking at the incentivized outcomes for the clients. They're incentivizing their own gratification over their own guilt. And when you catch yourself doing that, maybe that's what you want to do. But is that helping the client? Is that helping the situation? Is that incentivizing the next thing that you want to do for that person? Which is this, movement. The rescue mission is nobody's permanent home. And we tell them that all the time. And so inside the mission, we have things that are sand in the gears, if you will. You have to collect your stuff and move it out every day if you're in our entry shelter. If you've progressed to one of our higher tiered sheltering, every week you have to get your stuff and move it out while we, make you shift your bed a little bit so that you don't have the same bed every night or every week. Little things. We incentivize movement. We incentivize the things that create worth in people, as opposed to just letting them stay where they're at. And we'll talk about this when I get to the no, sit, lie ordinance, okay? Because I know it's controversial. Okay, I run a rescue mission, so the number one question I always get is this one. There's two things I want you to know. The first is, to answer that question, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. If you hand them something or not, you're not going to change their situation. There's nobody out on the streets with $495 in their pocket and they just need your $5 so that they can pay their rent. That's not what is happening. Unfortunately, if enough people give them $5, they might go out and get some heroin, which has fentanyl in it, and kill themselves. Second thing, no matter what you decide to do, don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. That's the imaginary leverage that exists, but you have better options. The first is, when you drive up and you get to that person with the sign, you can ignore them. I'm giving you that permission, and don't feel guilty. It's okay. It's a numbers game to them. They're not writing your license plate down and saying bad person. They're not. If you do want to engage, do what I do. Roll down your window and ask this. What's your name? No one ever asks a homeless person what their name is. And when they tell you it's Caveman, that was Thomas's name, or Sugar, that's their street name. Ask them, no, what's your real name? My name's Jack. Oh, my name's Tim. It's nice to meet you, Tim. About that time, the light's going to change. You'd actually engage better than if you've handed them $2. I'll be honest with you. Right? That's what I do. Or if you want to, you can walk by them or you can ignore them. I see it all the time because I do it sometimes. And the best social justice warriors and the best Christians and the best everybody does that. No one stops at every homeless person and says, what can I do to help? Let me anchor right here and help you. It's impossible, right? It's okay. But what you're trying to do here today is get the start of how you as a community want to address this. Oops.
Well, that's not good.
Not only did I drop it, but came apart. Okay, this is the other question I get. No, it's good. It works. Yeah, it's my military training. Why don't they just get a job? I mean, there's so many jobs out there, so many help wanted signs. People who are homeless for a long time are not work ready. They can concentrate maybe for 15 minutes, maybe. You got to start somewhere. They need to take a shower. They need to have the laundry done before they can start doing that. They need to get some vocational training. It's important to understand this because when you're looking at somebody that is on the street with a sign, they may not be able to have that job that you think it would be so easy to go get. Okay, here we are. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Okay, Colorado Springs, we have a no-sit-lie ordinance. It was just recently expanded. The perspective of the rescue mission, I can't speak for any other organization, is that we think it is a compassionate tool. It is not the tool to deal with the situation. But what it does is it allows for the law enforcement and folks that are engaged with people on the street to provide something that can motivate them to move. Now you heard Thomas. I was out in the camps closed. I had to go somewhere. I went to the rescue mission. I learned about CA. So if someone is, and this is my perspective, and I know that there are others, and I honor those because people they don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be bad about this. I honor what people feel. But if your solution is for someone who is drunk or high to be able to just lay somewhere on the street, they are vulnerable, cold, hungry, they could get run over. At the rescue mission, I pointed out that courtyard. People sit and lie there all day, but they're safe. They're not going to get assaulted. They're not going to get robbed. And in fact, they can go inside and they can get a meal. They can get a shower. They can talk to somebody about why they can't find anybody to help them with their Social Security insurance. They can talk to a CA counselor. There are options for them. They are sitting in line, but they have options around them. Homelessness is hard, and we often feel guilty about that. When we incentivize somebody's worth, it's amazing to see the transformation in somebody's life. You see it in Thomas's video. We have lots of videos of people like Thomas who have been able to take the first steps away from homelessness, addiction, and poverty by having a community that works together to address what is a hard problem. Colorado Springs is one very specific area that has our specific problem. I am not saying that what we do is just, copy and paste into Douglas County. But I do believe there are some core sort of ideas that can be transferred. And I think if you as a team decide to focus on that, as opposed to the perfect solution, I think you'll begin to make progress. Thank you.
Major General, thank you so much for that. We really, in Douglas County, we really believe in not doing things to people, but with them, and having our processes expert informed. And what you have accomplished in the Springs is nothing short of phenomenal. We are always so honored and grateful to have you with us. We're also really thankful that The members of the Douglas County Homeless Initiative really are experts in their field, from the nonprofit, faith-based community, law enforcement, academia, government, and the business sector. So I'd love to open it up to questions from the group with regard to what we just heard. Any questions?
Chief?
We are going to ask that I bring a mic around so that our participants online are able to hear. So I'll bring that to you if you have questions.
I think my biggest concern, Jack, is in Douglas County, trying to bring something like this into the county. The pushback we get is we have a very empathetic community, but we also get, that's great, just don't do it in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
How do you engage your community? Because a lot of the fear is, well, if you do something like this, you're just going to attract more homeless into the community.
Yeah.
How do you engage that?
Right. For a long time, as a homeless shelter, we existed in the place that we were at, which is in southern Colorado Springs, which the neighborhood is called Mill Street, if you're familiar with it, for folks that have been to Colorado Springs. What we did, and this is something to keep in mind, is when we decided we were going to do a resource campus, we looked around the country, and we actually went to San Antonio, and San Antonio has a large resource campus. And what the city did of San Antonio is they said, if you want city support, whether, secular, religious, whatever, you need to participate somehow with this campus, right? And then incentivizing the campus to build out, to be resourced. So we followed that model, and we built enough beds, okay, with the help of the city, to be able to enforce the no-sit-lie ordinance. So this is important. If you don't have a space for someone to go, the ACLU and lawyers will say you can't make somebody move. So we have space. We take pets. We have storage lockers, those red storage lockers. If you participate in our programming, you get a red storage locker, as an example. Incentivization. When we built the campus and we enclosed it, the neighborhood actually cleaned up. The neighborhood cleaned up because predators could no longer get to our clients. Drug dealers, human traffickers, upset spouses, those sorts of folks, they couldn't get in. And so it's actually cleaned up the area. The second thing is 75, 80% of the people that we serve have a previous El Paso County address. We're not actually incentivizing a bunch of people to come to the rescue mission from Montana or California. Certainly not California. It's way too good a deal out in California. It's about getting the community to understand that it's all of the community working together. Service providers, faith community, leadership, businesses, everybody's sort of taking their spot and being good at that. And we're the good at the lowest part of the socioeconomic ladder where people have no place else to go. Once you come to us, we broaden that to about 45, 50 different service providers in town that can then provide help. Veterans, families, because we don't do families. We work very closely with Catholic Charities as an example when it comes to that. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Chief, what other questions do we have?
Yeah, Councilmember Deeds has.
It's more of a comment what you said about, I think you said, is it toxic compassion?
Empathy, I say.
Empathy.
But, yeah.
Okay, well, you could correlate that to our young teenagers going into adults where, parents and this and that and teaching them for the future. So I like that. I think that's for me, what I heard is a good focus about how do we get the community to not feel guilty about not doing anything. Or again, I've always believed the name is a very true. And so I'm just reiterating some of your great facts because I don't think I have any other questions other than that you've set a good model.
Thank you.
So appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, it's not just us. It's the entire constituency, if you will, of folks that are trying to do this. If you think about the population of Colorado and the population in particular of El Paso County, it's going like this. But if my hands are backwards, so I'm going to go this way. We're slightly down in the number of folks that are coming to the rescue mission, just slightly. What we should be seeing is that. Should be going up, up, up. We're seeing a little bit of this. And that's because businesses, community efforts, other service providers, we're working together. It takes a little bit of compromise. You're not going to get all of your way. There's other stuff we'd like to do, but we don't do it because we know it's just, it doesn't fit in the spectrum. We have to have some humility about that.
Thank you. Dr. Reif.
Good morning, Jack. I'm Jamie Rowe for the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative.
Hi.
Well, I think you're kind of touching on my question. It sounds like you serve the mission a very select population of people. Okay. And I think that's one thing to consider in Douglas County is that we do have a lot of family homelessness, a lot of other types of homelessness. And Jack, I think you just made a really good point is that this is 40 to 50 service providers working together to make sure that you can serve everybody who's experiencing homelessness. But what you serve is a really high risk, vulnerable population.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Right. And I will say, and this is two things. The first is we serve the entire community. We are a Christian organization, and I'm going to say something that can be a little bit radioactive, but let me get through it, and then you'll understand. We serve LGBTQ individuals. If you're transgender and you come to the rescue mission and you identify as female, you're going to have a spot in the female area of the entry shelter. We've done this for years, and it hasn't been an issue, to be quite honest with you. There's not a lot of interaction about that particular issue at the rescue mission because people are starving. And we're getting to the basic level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? But after a while, if somebody starts to get stabilized and we're not their thing, there are other places in town that can help them. But they aren't good at the low barrier piece, meeting somebody who's starving. They don't have the facilities for it, as an example, whereas we do. So we'll work together with folks to do that. And you have to have some humility in this when you do that. And I think that's one of the critical things. The second thing is we end up being sort of an intake into the bigger system because people don't know where to go. Right? But you have to have the ability to take people in, understand what their situation is, and then connect them with another service. So as an example, I'll use a veteran. So a veteran comes to us, and they're pretty functional. We will connect them with veteran services because we don't do the VA. I mean, we connect with the VA, but we're not going to work VA benefits for somebody. But the veterans organizations can. So the person didn't know where to go. They ended up with us. We connect them with whatever that service happens to be. Families, same sort of thing. They'll come to us. We don't do families because we have, in particular, we have sex offenders. So we don't have kids or families. So we'll connect them with a resource outside of us to do that. So we're an entry, if you will.
Mr. Dodger.
Yeah, so you said starting with the outcomes is the important place to start. Can you talk a little bit about the process you guys underwent to decide what outcomes you wanted to focus on? And then my second question would be on the workforce side. You mentioned, the person panhandling is not ready for a job necessarily. What are some of the foundational first steps of employment resources that you offer to help them get there?
Right. So let me answer the second question first, which is when we look at engaging with a client, we're starting off with what did you used to do, right? And trying to understand what their background is. I worked in construction. I was a lawyer. I was a psychologist. I mean, we get that. If you don't want to live at a rescue mission, don't do meth. Okay, I'm just going to say that, right? Because it is evil, and people that get hooked on that end up losing everything. Right? It's just terrible. So what we try to do is figure out what they did before. The second thing is, what do you want to do now? And most of the time they're just, I just want to contribute again. I want to get back into that. And so we have a very structured way that you start off with a small task. And I'll use this example. Let's say you've been homeless for a while. You can concentrate for maybe 15 minutes. So your task is to sort of manage an area at the rescue mission and sweep it for 15 minutes a day. And then 20 minutes, and then 30 minutes as we expand that. Here's what happens. 2 weeks into that, and I've seen it happen, person's, cleaning their spot, another person comes by and throws a cigarette down in that area. The one dude chases the other guy down and says, hey, go pick that up, right? Because they've recognized somewhere I can do something. That was Thomas. Thomas moved from that to working in our laundry, and then to running the laundry, and then to supervising part of the work training folks that were working in our day center. So oh, by the way, we're tied to Pikes Peak Workforce, so that as you progress, we build an electronic resume in Pikes Peak Workforce's computer, because if you don't have an electronic resume, you're not going to get a job. But that's how he got his job. Is we built his electronic resume as he became a shift lead, then a supervisor, and then a supervisor. And we have training for folks as they get to those levels, like how you supervise somebody. Then we put that in his resume. Does that answer your question? Can you remind me your first question again?
The first one was about the process of getting the outcomes.
Yeah. I think it's first driven by scale. Okay. Because we're bigger, we can have more grand ideas about what we want to achieve. The second question you're going to have to answer before you get too far down the road is, are your outcomes about the community, or are your outcomes about the individuals? I think you can have both, but you're going to have to think about where your resources are going to go initially. Are we solving the problem of people living on the street, or are we moving people away from homelessness, poverty, and addiction? Because you can pretend to legislate, arrest your way out of this, which you won't, or you can create pathways and movement for people to get off the street. In health, work, and housing. I would say those three things: health, work, and housing.
Other questions? Chief?
I'm coming with the mic.
Two questions. You said that you don't take children.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that mom with the 5-year-old that's contacted, that's brought before you? What do you do with that family?
So we have security, and what we'll do, and we have a place at the facility where they can be safe initially, because sometimes they're leaving something that might have been dangerous and they don't know where to go. And we'll provide safety for them initially, but then we'll reach out to other providers like Catholic Charities as an example. And we'll talk about where that family might go. There are different providers in town, Tessa as an example, that might be appropriate for that young mom as an example. Or it could be, we have a place called Mary's Home that does single moms with their children if they have space. So our initial job, our job in that is just to make sure that they're safe in that moment while we connect them with another resource.
Okay, and the second question is, we're seeing in Douglas County what I call the travelers. We're seeing a lot of travelers coming through to where they're homeless. We're contacting them. They're from Texas, they're from California, they're from Tennessee. They're here in Douglas County. They really don't plan to stay in Douglas County.
Yeah.
But they're going to stay here for as long until they decide to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys seeing the same thing down in the Springs? Because we're actually getting a lot of folks coming from Colorado Springs who are here, who are trying to get back to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And, but do you guys, at your intake process, do you accept the out-of-state homeless?
Yeah, we'll take any.
Even if they're not going to be there long-term?
We have folks that are there for a day or two.
Okay.
And they're just moving from one place to the next. You know, we are part of I-25. Now, when you get to Denver, and this is why Denver has a slightly different problem, which is significant. Not only are they I-25, but they're I-70. So they are a node, if you will, in the larger transportation network of people that are just moving around the country, homeless, if you will. They're hitchhiking, it's truckers. Unfortunately, that's a lot of human trafficking happens with truckers, as you know. So what we're seeing is a little bit of the spillover, if you will, from where folks, I want to get to Denver. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but I don't think too many homeless people that are in, Missouri are like, I really want to get to Castle Rock. They're thinking about Denver, right? And then when they get to Denver, they're like, oh yeah, Castle Rock. And then, they come down here, maybe they see if it's better because they didn't like what they were doing in Denver, or they come to Colorado Springs and, they sort of go back and forth. But we do take folks for a day or two. We see that.
Jack, we have a question from one of our online participants.
Yes.
In your presentation, you mentioned the red lockers.
Yes.
And she was asking if you could go back and explain that in a little more detail. Sure. And the incentive that is and how that helps.
Right. So there's 4 things that people on the streets will say to law enforcement that you can't make me move. The first is there's no room. Now, we have room. We have 450 beds, but we can expand that. We have mats and cots and different things, and so last night it was very, very cold. We had 404 people stay with us. Okay? So we had space. The second is pets. The third is it's not safe. And the fourth is there's no place to put my stuff. So why would I go there? Storage. So we have temporary storage if you're just showing up and you're staying for the night and leaving. And that's very rudimentary, but it's storage. If you decide to and you have access to it in the morning and at night, 2 times. If you decide to participate in some of our programming, you are eligible for a red locker. And the red locker is available all the time. And you can put your stuff in there and it stays in there. So, Jack, you're saying that if I go get a physical and a mental health checkup and a vocation training analysis, I can have a red locker? Yes. Transaction, right? It's a transaction. So we use the lockers as a tool, a transactional tool to get somebody to take the next step.
Thank you. Mr. Narduzzo.
For those of you who toured Jack's facility like I did a month or so ago, you'll know what I'm about to say. The pictures you showed, Jack, of your site don't do it justice. I mean, it's a beautiful campus. What I'm interested to know, and I know you had a capital campaign, but I'm interested to know what role did the city of Colorado Springs or the county of El Paso play in helping you develop that acreage?
An incredibly important one. I'm an outlier in the gospel rescue community world, in that I'm not afraid of the government. Maybe it's because I came from the government, I don't know. But there's ways that you can navigate it as a faith-based organization that allows for the barriers and the sort of, the guardrails of who you are so you don't drift off who you are, but to still participate in the community. And so the city and the county were very influential in helping us to build the facilities. So we were getting grants from the county and the city so that we could build the facilities. How we conduct our programming, and again, I want to emphasize that we have no faith requirement for the clients to use our facilities to be safe, to be sheltered, to have food, to see a counselor, to do all of those things. If you want to get deeper into it and you want to do some of our other programming that is faith-based, it's voluntary. And that's how we navigate that. That's a whole nother briefing that I could give if you're interested.
Sure, we'll get to that. Rand, I'm wondering if, for all of those that have attended virtually, if there's anybody that is interested in asking a question that's online. And if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you.
Yeah, Luke would be happy to do that. I know we've asked a few times. Luke, do we see anything coming in? Any hands raised? I'll come back over here though.
I answered the two big questions I always get, so I don't know.
Let me say, while we're waiting for some online questions, I have a question, and I'm really thankful. So we're trying to navigate this expert informed. We're looking at it through that similar lens of the 4 C's, leading with compassion. Obviously, code enforcement has a piece of that, community services, and then communication. We're very thankful here. We just did a point in times. We have 166 individuals that were surveyed, and a huge thanks to Rand and staff for the hard work that they did on that. So, but to your point, our problem is not as significant as others, but we always say in Douglas County, we don't wait to do great. So if there's an opportunity to get ahead of the curve on this, I think we're interested in doing that. The logic model was really interesting, and I saw Dan McKelkey, our Director of Human Services, get very excited about that, which when he gets excited, I think we all get excited. But when we're thinking about outcomes based upon that point in time, would you give us any sense of where we might be thinking about outcomes? Would you change that from your Springs logic model?
One of the outcomes that I think you need to, I think Douglas County probably has as one of its sort of less visible homeless populations are those folks living in their cars, right? So folks are transitioning around, and they're hard to nail down as to the fact that they're moving from here to there to there, and they're in their car. And that could be families, it could be individuals, it could be multiple people that aren't family, but they're just together. They call them street families, if you've ever heard that term, where they look after each other. Right? You'll have generational, actually, older, younger, that will work together. So what are you going to do about folks that are in their cars? That outcome. I think that's are you going to have a parking lot? I don't know. Maybe that's not the answer. At the rescue mission, we have a parking lot that someone can park their car for a temporary period, but they can't sleep in it. They have to come to the rescue mission. They have to come inside. If you want to park your car, you have to come inside. Transaction. Again, right? And once they're inside, Cocaine's Anonymous, I never heard of it. I should go to that. Right? It's that sort of thing. So I would say that's a biggie if I was going to think about, because you have such the transportation corridor that you are, right?
Well, I don't know if we have about 5 more minutes with our wonderful guests, and then we'll transition to those from RTD and then Dr. Reif, who is here with us as well. But I don't know if Dan McKelkey wanted to share a little bit about yeah.
I have one question, and then I will. You know, as we wrestle with this problem, as you know, it changes. It's dynamic. And there are days when we have a lot of single men with dogs, and there are days when we have a lot of women with their children fleeing from something. And it's hard for us to quantify on any given day what that need would be. We do have a winter shelter network that allows for women and children that we operate during, the faith-based organizations operate during the winter months, which gives us a little bit of resources for the women and their children, but we don't allow men in there. So if we do have a family, then we try to do a hotel. How did you decide, like, what your focus would be? Because I think that's another thing that we have to wrestle with here is what is our goal? Is our goal to serve the individual, or is our goal to serve the family? And those are really different programming.
I don't think you can just, from the level that you're at, I don't think you can choose just one. I think you have to look at how are we going to address these different constituents. And you'll have to have some solutions that are different based on just the legal aspect of how you can't have some folks near other folks, as an example. We ended up with where we're at with the low barrier, because that's another constituent. You can have functional people that are homeless, but what you can't have is, we're going to help those folks. Somewhere in the community, you've got to have at that that lower socioeconomic, mental health, low barrier, addicted, where do those folks go? And so I would say you're going to have to talk with groups about where they're going to be in that, and then let them specialize. The other thing that will allow folks to do, particularly nonprofits, is to target their fundraising. Because people will be motivated by a particular group. Maybe they're motivated by young mothers. Maybe they're motivated by people who have mental health issues or addiction because they have that in their family, and that's what they want to help with, as an example.
That leads into a question we got online from our fearless leader of our mental health initiative, Laura Ciccone. Could you speak a little more towards what specifically you have in place to help those with chronic mental health, behavioral health? I know you have a lot of partners, but what does that path look like for somebody who comes into shelter or is experiencing homelessness that has really chronic behavioral health, mental health issues, and how do you help them?
So we work with mental health providers like Diversis, which is in Colorado Springs. They have counselors. Even during COVID, we did distance sessions. We never shut down, and because we had to stay open. There was no place for folks to go. They would freeze to death if they didn't come to us. So we work with our partners. Our counselors that are on site typically don't do the long-term counseling. They do more screening, if you will. Somebody that appears to be presenting some sort of mental health issue, we'll connect with them, and then we'll try to get them to connect with one of the service providers that comes to the rescue mission. And then eventually that person may end up going to that facility for that organization once they get more stabilized.
You know, Dan touched on goals, but there's a very specific, I think, success story that I wanted to share about the goals facility in Arapahoe County. Douglas County did just secure $1 million, and that was confirmed this last week through Congressman Crow's office in partnership with the goals facility. It's the former Xavier Women's School, but it is for families. So the criteria is you have to have a child with you. That is transitional housing, but it really is whole person when it comes to mental health, substance abuse, all sorts of job transition opportunities. We're really thankful for that. But when we're thinking about whole person, obviously that sheltering component, it sounds like that transitional housing piece would not fit that legal framework to be able to address some of the issues you're talking about.
So we are transitional housing. We have transitional housing. We also have permanent supportive housing from Housing First. I will just, if you are familiar with what Housing First is. And we can talk a lot about the value of both of those. Unfortunately, I think right now it's a little bit of a hot button topic out there. Because we operate both, we have certainly a perspective about which is more effective in the long run. But I would not throw the baby out with the bathwater on either of those. There's ways to do it. And we try to incentivize even the folks that are in the permanent supportive housing unit that we have with 65 apartments to take part in the wraparound services that are available. That's the thing, is what wraparound service, so you can have a space for somebody, but what wraparound services are you going to bring that are going to be made available? And that's where then you address that single mom. She's having a hard time finding a job because she can't get daycare. I mean, those are the sorts of things that the wraparound services piece of transitional housing will be helpful to do. Did I answer your question?
Well, I'm just thrilled that this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. I know you and I are doing a podcast down at your facility soon, so we'll have a much lengthier discussion. I'm sure there are many more questions, so we'll continue to engage with Major General, but we do have to transition to our next guest. Let's give Major General Jack Briggs a huge round of applause.
And thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And we're not the only answer. We're a answer. We're a part of the answer. Right, and that's the thing, is we want to work with everybody, and we'll work with anybody. to do our part so that we can incentivize and help them to do their part too.
Appreciate it. So online, we're thankful to have a couple representatives from RTD. We have Steve Martingano, Deputy Chief, RTD Transit Police Division, and Alton Reynolds, RTD Navigation Case Manager. Welcome, Alton and Steve. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Alton.
And same as Steve Martingano, making sure everyone can hear me.
Hi, Steve. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start. I apologize. I didn't realize this was going to be in person. If I would have known the time, I would have definitely drove out there. So I'm sorry to do it over the video here.
Both are fine.
What I wanted to just tell a little bit is about the RTD program and how we are putting forth a lot of efforts to kind of, assist with some of the issues that we know are occurring on our trains and buses, especially in your area, as well as the other areas within our district that we serve. RTD was one of the first agencies, public transportation agencies in the country where we brought more mental health clinicians. So we currently have 4 mental health clinicians on our team. They are right now contracted with the Mental Health Center of Denver. They mostly stay in Denver just based off of our current procurement, but they are able to go outside the county if there's an emergency situation. But I will be honest with you, with some of the issues that we have in the downtown area, around Union Station, Civic Center, and the 16th Street Mall, they are more than busy to stay within that area, and they assist Denver PD a lot as well to supplement if they have issues with any mental health calls. What we did with that program, we've had it going on now for 3.5 years. Is we took a lot of data from that, and what we were finding from the data and the contacts was that a lot of the individuals that were being contacted by our clinicians were suffering from homelessness. I think our last data capture was in the 60 percentile for the year of 2021. That everyone that they were contacting, over 60% were suffering from homelessness. We took those data captures and we then put in for a federal grant. We were able to win a substantial amount of funding to then start our first homeless outreach coordinator navigator position. And that's where Alton, who will speak here shortly, he came on board. That went out as a procurement, and the Jefferson Center for Mental Health won the procurement for that. So Alton is technically a employee of that organization, but he works solely for RTD. What we were doing prior to COVID, we were reaching out to a lot of organizations as we understood that homelessness is pretty common within public transportation, not only here in Colorado and the Denver area, but throughout the country. I'm sure any newspaper you open up, you'll see that some of the things that we are seeing here are being seen in New York and St. Louis and LA and other cities. So we were reaching out and we were making some really good contacts. We were having a lot of meetings and really trying to bring the organizations together. Then COVID hit and we lost touch with a lot of individuals. We knew that a lot of volunteer work they were not able to get volunteers to help out a lot just because of obviously the uncertainties of COVID. So we kind of started losing a lot of the gains that we made. So, this is definitely a, 24-hour a day job, but it was not something that we could sustain, within the couple of hours that we were devoting within our police division. So it was really, really important to bring Alton in. He works 40 hours. At times it seems like 40 hours in one day for some of the stuff we ask of him. But he goes out, he has been making really, really good contacts and getting us points of contact for when we have issues. A lot of the issues we currently are really seeing is encampments along our rail lines. We have miles and miles of rail at certain points of time. It's a really good enclosure away from the public. A lot of vegetation and fencing and such. So we every now and then we will have someone cut the fence and decide to make that a permanent residence for themselves, but that is too close to our train lines. So, we go out there and we clear the encampments with our team, between our officers and our facility maintenance teams. But one thing we really didn't know to do is where to ask them to go after that, right? The last thing we want to do is tell them, hey, really, if you just move 4 feet, you're on the public sidewalk, you could go ahead and stay there. That was not a goal of ours, and we didn't want to cause problems by just shifting it from one location to the other. So Alton has been doing a really great job of finding out the resources within those areas, so that when we do go to an encampment, we are prepared to tell them, which areas, that they could go to, what's open for them, and that has been helpful to, try to get them the resources they need. So that's pretty much, my involvement here. I'll have, Alton go ahead and speak a little bit about himself, and love to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. As Steve already described, he hired me on the position. And the fun thing about it was I had a little experience in regards to being a bus operator and knowing a lot of the routes that the RTD touches. There's more than 8,414 square miles of Denver metro area up to Boulder, all the way down into your Douglas County. The one thing that I try to do is kind of, as the commissioner mentioned a moment ago, stick to those 4 C's: the compassion, code enforcement, community service, and communication. So how do I do that? Is by building bridges between where we're at and what we would like to do. As Steve mentioned a moment ago, we have an encampment. What I try to do is first use the compassion approach, which is inform somebody when they have more than 7 days in terms of moving. Here are places that we can get you to. If I'm located in Boulder, I can let them know that they can go to the hot team in Boulder, and they'll try to help them out. Speak to Lonnie, speak to somebody, and know that there is a person that they can speak to rather than just a name of an organization. The next step I try to do with that is I've made contact with those organizations, such as the Focus Entry, and they know my name, they know my face, they know the expectation of RTD, trying to work together to help our homeless community in terms of moving from one place where it's obviously unsafe. If you're close to rails and close to lines, you're unsafe, but rather to a place where there's services available, such as over at the refuge, where there's showers, where there's food. And as it was mentioned earlier, 2 things that usually gives a person attention is teeth and food or feet. So we try to approach those things when I speak to any organization that I'm at. And when it comes to looking at Douglas County, I've been down to Richgate, looking at what our end of the line is. And I've been in contact with some of our schedules providers in terms of just looking at what can we do as an aspect of not having too much weight left on those at the end of the line. So working with Steve and working with our schedulers, we're looking at what can we do? Is it going to be an owl type of situation where a bus comes late at night and picks up that last scragglers that are there? I'll use that term, just to make sure that they have a place rather than being in the cold, and that we connect in terms of what facilities and locations are nearby that can be helpful to us, that we can make sure that they're sheltered and safe. So my main goal from wherever I'm at is just making a point of contact, bringing that point of contact, and making sure we've built bridges for safety for each and every person that I'm speaking to across the line. And furthermore, working with JCMH, that's who won the bid with RTD, we're able to look at something more than just the start of that, but continuing services for our unhoused to move them into positions where they can receive housing vouchers, or they can have stability in the lives that they live by having services that are provided through JCMH and or other locations that I'm in, such as in Aurora or other places in Arapahoe County and other areas. So that is the main scope of what I do in terms of build bridges for RTD, working within our community to make sure that those who are homeless can get support through our community organizations. I'm happy to answer your questions whenever anybody's ready as well.
Hey, Alton and Steve, thank you so much for being with us, and our thanks from Douglas County to RTD for engaging on this issue. I'd like to open it up to questions both in person and online, but before I do, I just wanted to share with you that I've heard from several of my elected colleagues along the RTD line coming south around this issue. I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think any of us have any interest in criminalizing those in crisis or criminalizing those that are unhoused. But obviously, as we think about transit, we would love to see RTD be successful. And when families feel that RTD may be slow, unsafe, or unreliable, those are challenges that I think we share together. And, you know, to the extent it can be fast, safe, and reliable, I think that's a huge benefit both for our communities and yours. We're talking a lot about the notion of a co-responder team. We want this process to be law enforcement involved or informed, but having a human services professional or a navigator such as yourself, I think is really brilliant strategy. So we're thankful for that. And I know our municipalities are looking to hear more from you if there needs to be more partnership in terms of that co-responder team or navigation support with law enforcement along your lines. To help you. So more discussion to come, I'm sure. But I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, but we can certainly open it up for questions, and feel free to add any additional detail. What questions do we have? Dan McKelkey.
Well, the question I have, and it's the question that's asked of me all of the time as the human services is, I need to provide or help provide services for folks who are experiencing homelessness. And I ask you that question as you go up and down the RTD lines, where do you point people? Do you point people to services? Do you point people to shelter? Or how do you help someone on that line with limited resources, knowing that if you're at Ridgegate, there isn't a shelter anywhere close that's not in Denver or Colorado Springs?
I'll start on the law enforcement side of it first, and if people don't realize, you know, our police division structure, we do have police officers. We're all you know, state commissioned, but we're very small. We only have about 21 for the RTD Transit Police Division. What we rely on a lot is our contracted security. So we have enough hours within our contracted security that we could hire up to 300 security personnel, and those are probably usually the first faces that anyone will see, besides the operators on our systems. And then we also rely on a lot on secondary employment with outside agencies, Denver, Aurora, and currently Thornton. I did reach out today to Commander Beals, and you know, we are going to be looking at seeing how we could expand that to assist. And the reason why that is, you know, homelessness obviously has been around for many years, right? And we're all trying to solve it and find best solutions. But one, you know, what has really contributed to the issues we're seeing is the drug, you know, the declassification from felony to misdemeanors, and you know, a lot of the jails not taking individuals for misdemeanors, so you know, there's not a lot of repercussions to continue that. And you know, individuals, especially during the winter time, they will ride our trains and utilize that as a rolling shelter in theory, to get out of the cold. And so when we do contact individuals, we don't just go up to someone and say, wow, this person looks homeless, let's figure out how we could help them. You know, we do it like we would do anyone else. We first try to check fare to make sure that people are on our system. You know, they paid to ride our system, and they're customers of RTD. Then when we do contact an individual and they do not have fare, or they're not doing anything else criminally related, you know, then we try to engage and find out, you know, what their destinations are, because we do know the end of the line is a big issue, especially in Ridgegate, just because nothing is there currently right now. So as we do contact them, we try to find out, our security team and our officers try to find out, you know, where they're trying to go. And if their idealism is just to ride back and forth all day to stay out of the cold, that is obviously something we can't have happen. So then we try to find resources available, and try to provide them and get them there. You know, it was spoken earlier about, you know, the amazing job at that shelter, but the very first thing that was said was rules, right? They have to follow rules to be in that shelter. And that's a phenomenon that we're really seeing, whether it be Denver or Jefferson County or all these other counties, is there is a group of individuals that are not following rules, right? And they can't go to shelters. But then they think, they think that they can then just, ride trains or hang out in other areas within the cities. And that's what we're really trying to balance that. And we continue to have conversations. I know that we will continue to have conversations with Douglas County and other counties to find out the best way to, remedy that situation. Because if someone wants to go to a shelter, we will be happy to utilize any resource we can, whether it be our police officer vehicles, our buses, whatever it takes to get that person, to get them in the need. It's the individuals that don't want to go anywhere that we struggle with. And then I think that causes some of the issues, especially at the end of the lines, right? Because it's not fair to our operator to have somebody on there that's doing drugs, smoking something. They were cited, but no jail is going to take them. But then just say, hey, let's put them back on the train to get them out of here. So those are the ones we struggle with. I know we work with, obviously Lone Tree as well as, Littleton and Jeffco and other end of the line areas to try to solve how to best get individuals to places that we could get them to, and especially out of the cold. But again, that's a struggle, and that's where we would love any ideas or help. I mean, it seems like you have from the picture, a lot of people there. So if, ideas are great to have for us, and we could go back and see if that's something we could accommodate. So.
And then following up on the other side of that coin, as we say, co-response. I work mostly with the other half of that of where are we at and what are we trying to do. Now, yes, Douglas County doesn't have as many shelters as we do in Denver. However, if we respond in kind, much like what's going on for that person or individual, we do have law enforcement with us when we respond, and we look at where we're at in that location. Now, if I'm up at Boulder, I'm able to point them out into different locations. If I'm in Aurora, I can point them to locations nearby, because it doesn't help very much for me to be in Boulder to say, hey, there is a rescue mission down in Denver. Well, the likelihood that they're going to go that far is not very strong. However, if they're in Jefferson County and they just need services such as the Action Center that allows a person to get food, shelter, and possibly even clothing, I can point them in that direction and say, go and talk to Sonny. And that is a person that I've met and a person who is willing to help. So I connect the dots for people who are wondering, well, you're telling me of these places, but why would I want to go there? Because I can tell you the person that you meet at this location is willing to help you out rather than just smile at you. Now, the question was, how do you determine things while you're at a location? I do a minor assessment of what's going on. If the person can give me information, what they're looking for, where they're trying to get to, that helps in regards to just saying, well, maybe they just need a shelter. But if they're unable to give any information back, barely even their name, then we're looking at a more significant situation where I would have to contact somebody who can be a therapist online for me to help me out, to say, hey, this person may need an M1 hold or things of that nature. We prefer not to get into that situation, but I do have that ability to be able to contact and do further assessment of the situation to make sure that a person who needs more gets more.
Thank you for that. What other questions? Is there a question online? Is that what you said? Do we have a question in the room? If we don't have a question, I don't want to put Chief Wilson from Lone Tree on the spot, but I'll just say from a Douglas County perspective, what I have heard is, an increase in drug use, vandalism, loitering, littering, issues that obviously create impacts for our valued municipalities. But I don't know, Chief Wilson, did you have anything that you wanted to share with us?
Well, I mean, yeah, we've definitely seen an increase at the end of the line at RTD. Just to give you one statistic, we made 1,200 arrests last year in Lone Tree, shoplifting, any number of things. 25% of all our arrests were transient, self-identified. And that's up from, in 2017, we're at 4%. So we've had a really huge increase, particularly at the end of the line we've had arson, we've had cars broken into, trespassing, and we are strapped for where do we send somebody, especially when they get off the train at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever time the line ends, and there's no place for them to go, and we don't have resources for them to partake in, and they're getting essentially kicked off the train because that's the end, and there's no going back, and so that's a problem that we hopefully we can work together and address. We certainly provide them with information about resources that are available to them, but most of those resources obviously are not in Douglas County. So, we need to solve that solution as well. But, and of course, COVID derailed everything. We were this close to working with RTD, having a contract to have some of our officers on there and really try to work together. And then 2020 came, and we saw that all got put to bed for a while. So hopefully we can resurrect that plan and try to work closer together as we move forward.
Chief or Alton, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that or if you had any additional comments.
Well,
No,
one of the ways
I'm sorry.
Steve? One of the things I would love to do is come down and speak with Chief and connect with him and continue to come up with ideas. I know he's working closely with Steve, and I'm going to slide it quickly to him on the law enforcement aspect of this. So I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, and Chief was, we did. We were very close. We had almost everything signed and dotted, and then obviously we all know COVID hit, and then we had some issues for funding on our end of it. I did, like I said, I reached out to Commander Beals this morning to see how we could start getting that back, especially when we're starting to hear that more ridership is going to be coming back, more businesses are going to be opening, whether it be a hybrid, or a 5-day work week. So, we want to be prepared for hopefully, more customers. I mean, obviously we need customers to sustain like anyone else that has a business. So we will definitely work and try to collaborate and see. I mean, they are, Lone Tree has been amazing partners, and, we try to deal with a lot of those end of the line issues as best we can. We have reached out to Light Rail, our operators, they know, the issues at any end of the line, whether it be, Littleton or Jeffco, as well as Lone Tree. I mean, Lone Tree is a little bit different just because there's nothing that has been really populated at Ridgegate as of today's date. So we have tried to work and have individuals go back to a more populated area, whether it be, Lincoln Station or somewhere else. But then we then get contacted by that area of town saying, hey, we're starting to see an increase, with vandalism and parking lot issues and everything else. So, again, going back to, what I was stating earlier, it's obviously, a select group that, it's terrible to paint the picture of everyone, that especially in homelessness, that they're all doing the same things, because we definitely know it's not. It's just a very small group, and that's the ones that we really, really need to, try to work with. I know at times people blame, maybe RTD. I know, for moving people here and there and thinking, but I know I see a different, I see a different phenomenon. I mean, Lone Tree, we have issues. We have issues in Aurora and Thornton, and they all have In-N-Out burgers. So I don't know if that's a correlation as well. So I keep pushing the blame to them.
Absolutely, it is. The Springs Rescue Mission, I think every Thursday they have In-N-Out Burger come, and those that are at the facility can actually get really good. Is that right? Is that Thursdays?
It's once a month on Mondays, and it's an incentive. If you come in, you get a burger.
That's awesome. I might show up for that. Well, we like incentives, and we really like partnership in Douglas County. So are there any other questions for our guests, for Alton or the Chief? Well, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today.
Well, thanks again for the invite.
Appreciate it.
Please, allow us to come to other ones. And as we make changes, I will definitely, reach out to the Chief and see if he could present those on some of the things we're doing. Because, one thing I will tell you is our customers, especially the ones that ride the E-line and such from Lone Tree, they do a really good job of letting us know the issues that they do see, and we are trying everything we can. So I do appreciate, that feedback. So.
Well, keep up the good work. We're looking forward to the ongoing conversation. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
So with that, I'm really pleased to move to the next section of our agenda today, which is a conversation with Dr. Jamie Reif, the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative Executive Director. Dr. Reif has served as the organization's director for some time now. She conducts research on poverty and homelessness, and has certainly served well in terms of being a good partner and working with the municipalities and the counties on the issues that we are all facing. So a warm welcome for Dr. Jamie Reif. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me online? Are we good? Okay, thanks, Luke. So thanks for having me in Douglas County. I-25 was fun this morning. So I just wanted to take a moment and invite all of you to the next regional convening on homelessness that we're having April 5th and give you a little bit of context on that. So last year, we had our first annual regional convening on homelessness on March 18th. And what we did is we gathered our elected officials as well as a lot of providers and others, and we had a conversation on homelessness. Because I know, Jack, one of the things that you brought up is like, it's you, but it's you and 40 and 50 other providers in Colorado Springs. And Douglas is part of a region, and we just heard from RTD how they utilize different services around the region to be able to serve everyone. And so this regional convening is really about how we're working together and the framework that we're using in the 7-county Metro Denver region to do a couple of things. But one of the things is to address veteran homelessness. And like Jack, you talked about, you don't do VA benefits. You don't have to, like that's not your jam. And so what this is about how we've all gotten together and as a region started focusing on veteran homelessness through a movement called Built for Zero. And I will save all of that for the convening on April 5th because that is a deep dive that we will be doing. But I do want to invite you. This event is co-hosted by DCHI Community Solutions, who oversees the Built for Zero and have helped communities across the country reach a point where they can house more people in a month than are experiencing homelessness in a month. And that's called Functional Zero. We are never going to end homelessness. I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen. But what we can do is make sure it's rare, brief, and non-recurring. And that's what Functional Zero is. It's not this ideal that we're going to end homelessness and it's never going to happen again. It's that you can house people quickly. And there's a method and a data set to that. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And what we've been able to do over the last year is actually decrease veteran homelessness as a region at a time when newly homeless went up 99%. Those seeking emergency shelter went up 40% in a year. We've actually decreased veteran homelessness by 15% across our region. And that is really through this collective movement and really working and focusing with partners across the region, and to each of us taking a piece. And I think what we've heard here today is that Douglas is going to have diverse needs when you're addressing homelessness. And so what this is about is us all working together, and you don't have to create the entire wheel, but if we all create a piece of it, we can serve everyone. And so that's what this is kind of about. The other co-sponsors are the Metro Area's county commissioners, I'm really pleased to say, as of Friday. The Metro Mayor's Caucus, the state, the governor's office as well will be there. So I just want to invite all of you. Rand, do you have the email? Should I send it to someone?
Jen, I'm sending the invites to Jen, who will pass it on to everyone.
Okay, great. The other thing that we'll be talking about on the day is how we've addressed veteran homelessness, but also the funding opportunities that are ahead of us as a region and as a state that can really help address some of the challenges that you're seeing in Douglas County as you're standing up whatever the responses that you choose. And also to hear what the region is going to be standing up, particularly around some behavioral health needs. And so I just want to flag that as well, as that's a great opportunity to hear directly from people that are doing this work on what is going to be in front of us as far as funding, because we have a really historic opportunity to create responses and get people experience homelessness into stability with this funding ahead of us. So that's very exciting. All right, that was a lot. I just said a lot of words. Any questions for me?
Well, I may not have a question, but I do have a comment. It's a huge note of gratitude and thanks for your years of research, study, and effort in this arena. I know as Douglas County, we have signed the Built for Zero pledge, as many of our municipalities have as well. We're looking forward to partnering. I will say with MAC, the Metro Area County Commissioners, there's only a handful of us, but we do represent over half the state's population. And we thought, well, what a great opportunity to come together in a bipartisan way, identify an issue that's significant to all of us in the metro area, and then come alongside those that have been working in the space for a while to identify some solutions. So we're going to try to eradicate homelessness in Douglas County, but in the meantime, we'll try to keep it rare, brief, and infrequent for sure. So thank you. you, Dr. Reif. Any other questions for Dr. Reif? Yes, sir.
Yes. So that people online can hear you. Yeah.
Jack Briggs, Rescue Mission. And I just want to thank you as a veteran. And go back to the thing that I talked about. This is a really big, sort of hard issue, this homelessness thing. How the nation is addressing veterans' homelessness is a success story. I'm telling you, because people are putting their perspectives down and working on the problem. And that's how Douglas County, that's how the state of Colorado is going to stand out. The state of Colorado can be a leader in the nation in this issue, if we choose to. If we choose to put our partisanship down and work together. And that's what encourages me about what you're doing, because what you're doing is actually that. And it will make a difference. I just wanted to thank you as a vet.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. And we are the only state in the entire country that is a Built for Zero state. And there are portions of our state that are reaching that functional zero point where they can house more veterans than are experiencing homelessness in a month. So it's possible here in Colorado, and it's possible statewide. So thank you for that, Jack. And thank you for your service.
That's exciting. That's a lot of hopefulness.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Reif. Let's give Dr. Reif a final round of applause. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. Absolutely. So with that, we'll move into any additional public comment. Is there anybody in the room or online that would like to provide some public comment? Okay. Sounds like we've captured all the comments for today. And with our final portion of the agenda, Jen with next steps.
Thank you. And just a moment of gratitude to you all for coming in on this day. Thank you so much. We hope to continue to keep everyone engaged online and in the room. Thank you all. So the next thing that we wanted to do for our next meeting is hopefully get into the specifics. Okay. Technical fun. I think it's me. Anytime I touch something, it breaks. My husband will tell you that. So we wanted to get more in-depth, having a more in-depth conversation on the different codes, different ordinances, get a little deeper into that code enforcement C. So what we're hoping to do at the next meetings in April is ask our law enforcement friends and those who are working in our attorney's offices through the different municipalities as well as Douglas counties. We're going to ask them to come back to the next meeting in April and talk about what types of codes they have, what types of related ordinances or anything they might be utilizing in order to help them address homelessness. We're also going to ask them about their pain points with that. We assume that there are some pain points. We'd like to hear a little bit more about that and then understand what are their needs and what opportunities do they see for improvement. So we're going to get into that in a little more detail in the next meeting so that we can really dig in and understand what that looks like, because this is really coming from me, but I'm very optimistic that there are some ways that we can coordinate and be a little bit more cohesive about the way that we look at this and the way that we're able to approach this as a county going forward, and maybe even regionally. I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn. So we will be reaching out and talking with everyone and asking them to be prepared to come to the April meeting with that. And honestly, going forward, would like to do that with all of these kind of different focus areas and understand, from say our providers who are providing services, the same things, what sort of resources are you providing What are your needs? What opportunities do you see? So we can begin to bring together kind of what our approach is going to be for Douglas County. So I think that that is what we have for the next meeting. I think that as we have opportunities to bring in experts in the field, such as General Briggs, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your information with us. As we have more opportunities to do that, we will continue to ask them to come in and talk with you all about this so that we can learn from these models that are actually happening in our region and, you know, elsewhere. I mean, if now that we have this hybrid atmosphere that we're living in, and thank you to IT for helping us with all this, because we definitely could not have done it alone. You know, I think there's opportunities for us to reach out even beyond the Denver metro region and learn as much as we can. So that is what we have for today's meeting. Thank you. Once again, thank you all for coming today. I do have to put in a plug. We have a sign-in sheet. I don't know if it's circulated or not, but if you have an opportunity to sign in, that's very helpful for us. And we will be in touch with more information unless there is anything else that anybody has to bring up.
The only other thing I'd like to say is thanks to Jennifer Osario, who always coordinates all these meetings, make sure that we have everything we need. Start stressing about this a week before, but it always turns out really well. Be safe. Thank you.